The game that started it all. The game that introduced us to a whole new world to explore. The game of my childhood. I still remember when my friend recommended this game to me. The times when we would spend hours playing ykw1. Back then, we improvised ykw1 themed stories and told them to each other when we had a sleepover. This game shaped the bond I have with my best friend, and I am so thankful for that. But I can't speak. But unfortunately, not everyone was willing to accept ykw1 with open arms. Upon release, people write it off as a Pokemon ripoff, which I disagree with. But that is another topic for another video. I don't know about sales numbers or anything, but here in Europe, it was actually reasonably popular. I think that's why ykw1 released in a lot more European languages, even in Dutch, my native language. In Japan, however, people were shitting their pants from the thought of ykw1 potentially killing Pokemon. Of course, Japan would love ykw1. The games were based off their culture. Like, imagine if in the next Nintendo Direct, they would have announced that there would be a brand new Monster Collector RPG that was inspired by the Bible. Everyone here would be hyped as fuck about it. Forget your precious Mudkip. Judas and Jesus will be your new best friends now in a journey to defeat all the 8 priests of Vaticania to face the Pope himself and become the new champion of Christianity. Okay, let's actually talk about the game itself now. Crying emoji. The story. ykw1 opens with Nate, our protagonist, and his friends showing off their collection of rare bugs. This cutscene shows us that Nate's friends are Omega nerds, but somehow still impresses Katie, Nate's crush. So Nate is jealous and goes to the woods to catch them all. Instead, he finds a yokai that tells him about floating gods in abandoned buildings. Show our god Pitapat in an abandoned house. He opens the world of yokai for Nate by giving him a watch, which lets him see and befriend a bunch of yokai. This is the intro to this game, and it's a pretty good one. It shows us the basics on how yokai work, but it also immediately lets you know that Nate is struggling with the fact he wants to be special. Average motherfucker. In the next chapter, Nate learns how the watch works by befriending yokai and solving problems with their help. Nate solves the fight his parents are having. Luckily, he got there in time before his Abdallah smash, like Dad, did anything bad. And uses Tattletale. I don't remember that in the video somehow. And uses Tattletale to help Katie and her problems. Afterwards, Tattletale mentions that she's heard a businessman mumbling about breaking some random holy seal in town. She heard he was heading to the post office, so naturally, Nate goes after him, and it turns out it's a yokai. He beats him and uses Tattletale to force him to explain his whole plan to break the 4 seals and become the most powerful yokai. Because forcing people into conversation and forcing them to admit their plans is totally not illegal. He revealed all the other seal locations, and Nate restores all of them. When he tries to restore the last one, however, he gets interrupted by the boss of this chapter, Slimemander, the worst nightmare of any competitive player. Play the weird Slimemander sound effect that sounds like Aunt Yamama. After defeating him, he sends out a last attack that gets blocked, because suddenly Venox appears, saving Nate and Whisper. Venox disappears and Slimemander dies at the end. This is also a very good chapter, simply because it builds up this danger around Springdale that Nate has to go uncover. Like, it's just raining in the seal section, and that just adds a layer of fear for the greater force. After the chapter, Whisper even says that he feels something big is behind all of this, but they have to go to bed first, before trying to find out who the big bad guy is. Now, guess how many chapters it takes them to find out who it is? 7 goddamn chapters! 7! Like, this chapter introduces a bigger threat that is shrouded in mystery to the game, but afterwards, Nate completely forgets about it. They just go on random adventures that have no damn meaning to them. The only reason the story advances in ykw1, if you can even call it a story, is by pure randomness. Guess how they find the second boss? They randomly stumbled upon it in a bathhouse. Guess how they find the third boss? They randomly stumble upon it again, this time in a lake. It's almost like JoJo's, where stand users are connected and barely any chapters have consequences for the next chapter. Like, you can shuffle almost any chapter and another with the story and it will still make sense. The whole game feels like a Saturday morning cartoon, and I dislike those a lot. Nate can just die, and in the next chapter, he'll be chilling with his friends like nothing ever happened. Was that a spoiler for the actual anime? Because that did happen, lol. The amount of cutscenes ykw1 has for its minimalistic plot is a bit stupid, but luckily you can just skip these cutscenes. This is why every ykw1 playthrough looks like this. Start, down, A, left, A, repeat. And coincidentally, this is also the exact pattern to go back to the title screen. Despite this all, the last chapter is actually amazing. It gives a lot of lore, opens up a lot of unique areas, and it's just really hard to mess up the ending for your game when you have this awesome design as your final boss. I don't want to go too deep into it, because there happens way too much for me to cover it all, but just know that the ending is good, and not too good to compensate for the lack of story, but it is a pretty good ending to the first game of the series. I'm already regretting this.
Are we done yet?
The gameplay. One thing ykw1 does really well, though, is creating a very unique battle system, which is why it's really sad that it only lasted 2 games. Sad face. Basically, how it works is that you have a wheel where you can place 6 yokai at a time. You can rotate this wheel during battle as much as you like, but only the 3 front yokai will get to attack. Every yokai attacks on its own, 5 different possibilities. Attacking, which is their regular physical attack that sometimes has a side effect. Technique, which is their special attack, which also has an attribute assigned to them that can deal more or less damage depending on the attribute of the defending yokai. This attribute can also be heal or drain, which functions a bit differently. In spiriting, which is buffing or debuffing yokai, buffs will fade after a certain amount of turns. But to get rid of debuffs, you have to switch the debuff yokai in the back and perform a minigame to get rid of the debuff. When debuffed, a yokai cannot perform their ultimate, and if you hit a debuff yokai, your ultimate will charge faster. Guarding is basically using a turn to massively reduce the damage you take that turn, and loafing is just doing nothing really, and if you hit a loafing yokai, you can also charge your ultimate faster. The chance of your yokai performing a certain action depends on the yokai itself. For example, a shogunyan will naturally attack more than guarding, but there is a way to change those chances. Every yokai has a certain personality. This determines which action it will do, most of the time. For example, I'm dying in my brain. A rough personality is more likely to attack. You can change these personalities with books, and they also determine which stats grow more than others. Personalities also determine how much you loaf around. This can be reduced by battling with yokai or by using books as well. Every yokai also has a ultimate that can have a lot of different effects when you use it. To use it, however, your ultimate meter needs to be full, and you need to perform a minigame similar to getting rid of debuffs. Every yokai also has a tribe, and placing 2 yokai with the same tribe next to each other will give you a certain boost. You can also give your yokai food, which heals them, or sometimes fills their ultimate meter. If you do this, however, you have to wait a few turns in order to use your items again. Pinning is used for when you want your yokai to only attack a certain enemy. Pinning can also be used for getting your yokai to attack a certain part of a boss. Oh, and yokai also have a certain skill, which is an ability that can do a bunch of things depending on the skill. Okay, that was a lot. You see what I mean by having a unique battling system. ykw1 throws a lot of different ideas together to create this beautiful balance between the battling being boring and being way too intense. You will especially see this system shine during boss fights, where you have to constantly use items, purify, use ultimates, and pin different parts of the boss to stay alive. It is beautifully executed, but it got a lot of criticism when it was released. People didn't like that you couldn't control your yokai. I personally believe that the game is better without control of your yokai, since it would turn into a boring button-mashing game, and it just makes boss battles actually intense, unlike Pokemon. And yes, I know this criticism came from Pokemon fans, we all know it. So yeah, this is such a Pokemon ripoff, right guys? As the series progressed, however, the battle system became more advanced, and going back to ykw1, it feels a little bit dated. Like, it's still fine, but it isn't as interesting as it seemed back then. Honestly, this game as a whole seems kind of outdated compared to the sequels, and that brings me to my next point. The content. I value content a lot in my games. Like, they are very expensive, so I need to get my time out of these guys. I played a lot of 3DS games as a kid. When I checked my playtime on ykw1, it was over 200 hours. So I can say that ykw1 has a lot of content compared to the 3DS library. But the problem here is that it lacks content compared to the other games. You see, ykw1 is a franchise that keeps expanding on what it has already built. Every sequel keeps adding more stuff, and also keeps what it already had in its predecessor. This results in the prequels having less of a reason to be the best game in the series, because the next game will keep the things that were good and add more good things to them. This results in ykw1 feeling a bit outdated. You can see this in its UI, its story, and its content. ykw2 and 3 had such massive upgrades in content, but in the main game, both in the main game and in the post-game, that ykw1 feels short in comparison. ykw only has the Infinite Inferno, which is one of the best and largest post-game areas, but so has ykw2. And the original also has some problems with its side quests. The side quests are boring as hell. Games often try to give the illusion of content by including side quests in the games that are actually just a bunch of fetch quests to bring random items to an NPC. ykw1 consists mostly of these side quests, but some games can do side quests right. Some examples are Legends Arceus, where most side quests can add something to the village, so you will be rewarded with a nicer town. Or in Breath of the Wild, where side quests can lead you to epic boss fights that you otherwise might have overlooked. Just look at the side quests of ykw3, where 90% of them got you a unique boss, item, dungeon, or yokai. ykw1 certainly has some good side quests, but they are hidden behind all these quests that basically waste your time. You can completely ignore them, which is fine, but for me, those side quests are not extra content. The vibe. So, is ykw1 the best game in the series? No. Is ykw1 a bad game? No. Does ykw1 have reason to be played over the other game? Absolutely. You see, despite my criticism towards this game, it has a lot of charm. The story, the battle system, the side quests, they are all way more basic than later games, that it actually becomes ykw1's biggest strength. If you want to play ykw at its core, then this game is for you. It's not the best in the series, but it does have its unique vibe to it that no other game has. Sometimes we just want to return to the game where things were simpler, where we could just help people with the little things. The game that doesn't need to be long for us to enjoy. The game that makes us feel like kids again, where we could explore with our friends and return to bed safely, sleeping under the night sky of Springdale. So my thoughts about ykw1 in a nutshell are that compared to the sequels, it lacks content and features, but because it is shorter and more basic, people tend to come back to this one if they want to play a ykw game again, but don't want to spend ages on the playthrough. Now this is only my opinion, and I also asked around the internet to see what others had to say about this game. I got a lot of answers, so I'm not able to get through all of them, but I got a lot of different perspectives. Great game, tons of content, solid story and monster designs overall, 9 out of 10, Gingy. It's okay, but there aren't many things to do. It gets boring after a while. I definitely prefer ykw2, ykw Blasters, and ykw3. Best one in the series, together with Blasters, laughs. Yeah, okay, not everyone has the same opinion. It has the best story and has a simple fighting method. Decent for its time, good amount of content. Not needing to trade, use external means for all, but one yokai is nice, and it's one of the things one does better than two. Yeah, I forgot to mention that it's very nice to have most of them all in one game, because 2 had a lot of version exclusivity. It brought people more together, and I am struggling. It gave them a reason to trade more. Good boss fights, gameplay aged terribly. Automatic combat isn't that great. ykw2 3 did it way better. The dex is kinda bad, largely recolors that add little to the game, a lot of really unappealing designs. Pandanoko, to this day, is a terrible idea. Crankakai sucks. Gilgaros is a chore to get. ykw1 is a great game that successfully built a strong foundation for future ykw media to build on. It's objectively worse than all the other mainline games, but I cannot call it a bad game, as it's the only ykw game not influenced by the anime. Future games lack ykw1's unique, charming writing, while also having the same charm in its world. The gameplay is solid and fun, which ykw2, debatably the best game in the series, would add extra depth to. Fans often overlook ykw1's value, and I think it's refreshing to play if you're looking for a breather from what the franchise has become today. This guy, honestly, shares my opinion the most. I love ykw1, and personally, I think it is the ykw game that does the concept the best. It is the one that is truly a monster collecting experience. Now yes, it certainly is the most lacking in content, but I think that the other game's content can be kind of overwhelming at times. And sometimes, especially in ykw 2 and 3, the availability of various methods to befriend rare yokai works against itself. In my opinion, this devalues the rarity of the yokai. I'm running out of breath.
That's
Decent game
crazy.
with issues. Most yokai look good, although many are just reskins. Bosses are good. Has and exploit that shreds the game. Plot's fine, nothing all that noticeable. Street pass in this game is just awful. Takes forever to get panda. Cranks are a chore. No trade, which is fine. No real online battles. Quests are there, and to me at least the worst in the original trilogy. So what did we learn from the general thoughts of the community? Some have varying options, but they all kind of agree that ykw1 is inferior to its sequel. Some just say that it is bad, while others give it praise for being the first one. All I know is that people are going to be a lot more positive when in the next video, and I'll be reviewing whatever this video is, ykw1 2. But first I need to make some more watchlog videos, so be sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss the next video. I appreciate it a lot. Have a great day.
How was that?
Shouldn't have done that.
I have a lot of fond memories about ykw1 2, and probably a lot of people too, since this was the best-selling ykw1 game. It was the game that led to the sequel, ykw1 2 Psychic Spectres, that made ykw1 take over Japan in its war with Pokemon, but sadly that hadn't lasted long. Oh, and on that subject, this review will briefly cover Psychic Spectres, since I actually haven't played it, and kinda relies on other people's opinions with the sequel and not my own, so if you think I should review Psychic Spectres individually in a video one day, comment below. Tons of people had ykw1 2 compared to the first game, and this was even the game that got a ton of my other friends into ykw1 back in... He spelled like everything wrong. Back when it released. Like legit, more people at my school own the newest ykw1 game than the newest Pokemon game. Thanks to this game, I know how it feels to play ykw1 together. Like, you wouldn't guess how hype and fun it is to get 4 players actually together to all collectively play the Blasters minigame for 1 hour. But it is the best game? Wait, no. But is it the best game? Is it the peak of ykw1? Well, I guess I have to answer that question. Also, this is entirely subjective and anyone can like any game. I'm just talking about my opinion here. In my ykw1 review video, I ended with a section where I asked around the ykw1 community for people's opinions. Today I'm gonna start with such a section. It's interesting, and also in my opinion, the best one in the series of the games. They 100% should have added a bit more difficulty though. It's too easy to grind with holy exploits. 8 out of 10. Way better than the first game. Key quests aren't as bad. The majority of them are story related, and it's a story disguised as a key quest, making the player feel annoyed. Soundtrack is so good, bosses are so good, story is god tier. Oh my god, the post game incredible. This is written in all caps, by the way. I'm gonna stop with showing these opinions, because you probably get the point by now. So you might think this is also what my opinion stands, but that is not the case. Display text with a black background that just displays ykw1 2. Why is it the best game? No sounds allowed during this screen. You can cut out parts, but I'm laughing about this part because I literally messaged him and he put sure next to it. I didn't see this. I put, what about the Undertale credit sound effect? It'd work well. And he put sure.
Nice.
And then I used it. It was funny. Anyway, so first of all, I want to clarify that ykw1 2 is by no means a bad game. I'm probably going to give ykw1 2 actually a lot of praise in this video, but I'll probably compare ykw1 2 to ykw1 3 in the next video since it would fit better there. I also want to say that I have never played Psychic Spectres again, because I don't want to spend 40 euros on a game I have already played, so this video is going to be focusing on Bony Spirits and Fleshy Souls. The story. ykw1 2 improved the story a lot compared to ykw1 1. First of all, the story gets a lot more complex and interesting. It follows Nate again as he rediscovers yokai because Kinnigan stole his watch. Afterwards, Nate goes to Harrisville, where he can time travel apparently. let's blame the yokai plays with mirror decks on the screen. He meets up with his grandfather and comes into contact with the wicked tribe yokai. These guys want to take over the world, and you have to stop them with the power of time travel shenanigans. It's already a way better plotline than ykw1 ever was, but I've already skipped over a lot of the parts and little things in the story that help it to become a way more interesting story. My main complaints with the story is actually because you spend so much time in the past, the story just has this very grey ambience to it. I'm sure Old Harrisville looks nice, but Old Springdale is just so grey, it makes me depressed. Danster, wouldn't it be crazy if the grey and depression was supposed to highlight the depression during the Industrial Revolution? Question mark, exclamation mark, question mark, exclamation mark, brackets. You don't spend that much time in it, but I just immediately think of Old Springdale whenever someone mentions ykw1 2. I also have a problem with how the story is paced, especially in the second half of the game. This half focuses a lot on the plot because you are nearing the end of the game at that point. Because of this, chapters will become very unpredictable and have a weird structure to them. And this will result in stuff like Unfairy being the end boss of a certain chapter, which doesn't feel right to me. But despite these few problems, ykw1 2 has a great story. Why don't we go on to the next section? Oh yeah, key quests. So this is probably the main thing people bring up when criticising ykw1 2, and I do agree with them, that key quests can be annoying when I do another playthrough of this game. Sure, in the beginning, I didn't have any complaints with it, but when I replayed this game, I always got less interested into the key quests. In theory, key quests should be a good idea. For any of you that somehow don't know what these are, key quests are basically side quests that are mandatory to complete in order to progress the story. These quests usually have some involvement in the story, so basically they are part of the story disguised as key quests. Giving the player the option to choose what they should do in the story should be a good idea, right? I think I messed it up, but who gives a shit? Well, some people certainly don't mind this, but I know a lot of people that do not like key quests, and I think that is 1, because they are presented as side quests and feel less important, and 2, some of them are just completely unnecessary. Like there is a side quest where you play hide and seek. Oh wait, sorry, let me answer this. Yes? Wait, really? Well, that was my editor, just let me know that. It's not just 1 key quest, but it is a whopping 3. What a total waste of time. And I also think 1/4 of every playthrough stops when they have to do this train side quest. If I studied psychology, I could probably make an hour-long video about the psychology of key quests, but I'm still in high school, so studying psychology is not an option yet. If I would have to describe the feeling of key quests, then I would say it's like if you were watching a show where you see the next 3 episodes as all labelled as filler. We still need to watch them all if you want to unlock the non-filler episodes. In conclusion, even though it takes away the freedom, they shouldn't have included key quests because it fucks with our brains too much. Battle system. The battle system hasn't really evolved that much coming from ykw1 1, but it did get some upgrades to it. You now have access to the ykw1 Model 0, which has 2 functions. You can do Moxie. It's a late night, man. It has 2 functions. You can do Moxie's ultimates, and you can poke. I feel like you're gonna have to cut out some parts of this, so I'll just go back to the start of Battle System just to save you time. The battle system hasn't really evolved that much coming from ykw1 1, but it did get some upgrades to it. You now have the access to the ykw1 Model 0, which has 2 functions. It can do Moxie's ultimates, and you can poke. Moxie's ultimates are just a stronger version of regular ultimates. But you need to have 3 adjacent soul. should not be this funny. But you need to have 3 adjacent soul meters to be filled. This extra power boost can be nice, but you don't use it very often because regular soul meters are just better in most cases. The thing we are really after. I'm just gonna take a moment. Let me just see. Oh, I don't actually have that much left, so let's just get through it. Right. Let me find back to where we were. The thing we were really the thing we're really after is a poke option. When are you guys inspirited? I feel like I'm gonna drag off part of the video. Jesus Christ. Oh my god. When a yokai is inspirited, you can poke this yokai. You have to perform a mini-game where you have to poke different parts of the yokai's body. Each part will correspond with a certain effect. You can get money, soul, or even more befriending chance on the yokai. The befriending chance boost is huge, as giving the player more options to increase the befriending chances is always appreciated, since it's really frustrating in ykw1 to befriend any S-rank yokai. Poking for soul also became very useful in competitive. Oh wait, I forgot to talk about competitive. So ykw2 finally got themselves an online ladder to complete with total strangers on the internet in ykw battles. This was huge, as ykw was perfect for competitive play since now that they've added a lot more yokai with unique skills. For example, slime along. Competitive just brings so much replay value to an already content-packed game. Speaking of content, oh boy, my transitions are on fire. Yeah, sure they are. There's a transition every 3 seconds, so I keep laughing. The content. The funny thing about this paragraph is that I had to add in a full stop because he messed up his punctuation. And it annoyed me for some reason. I think most people praise this game for its post-game. In fact, the post-game is just way better than the main game, and probably the reason why you would want to buy ykw 2. There is just so much to do here, that you will never be able to finish it all. And with Psychic Spectres, there is even more. Side quests are really improved here. Sure, some of them are still a bit of fetch quests, but a lot are meaningful ones that have a little story to tell and a unique yokai or item at the end. Infinite Inferno's size is also doubled now, that we also have Divine Paradise, and we also have the Infinite Tunnel, which can be boring, but I spend way too much time in there to not get it mentioned. I also really like how there are now a lot more unique ways to befriend rare S-rank yokai. Overall, ykw 2 just added a crap ton of content, and I love it. So ykw 2 is an awesome game. In my opinion, it stands above 99% of the whole 3DS library with its charm, quality, and content. ykw 2 is one of the best 3DS games of all time. But the best game? That spot's already claimed by a certain other game, which may also be known as the longest but most contentful game on the 3DS. And that another game is what I will be talking about in my next review. Speaking of my next review, if you don't want to miss it yet, be sure to subscribe, and I have a few watchlog videos related to go through yet. And while you're at it, like, comment, and do all that stuff that makes it all grow and go brrr. Thanks for watching, and I appreciate it a lot. Have a nice day.